Hello, everyone. I'm Jamie, and I have with me Stacy here today. We are excited to continue talking to you about personalized competency-based learning, or PCBL, and what that can look like in practice for schools and classrooms.
So today we're joined by Melia Franklin, who facilitates PCBL learning in our area through the Success Ready Student Network, or SRSN. Melia works closely with educators as they explore and implement PCBL, so we're so excited to have her perspective today.
Yes, Melia, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So to get us started, Melia, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work with PCBL through the Success Ready Student Network?
Sure. So I currently serve as a facilitator with the Success Ready Network, SRSN, where I support schools and districts as they explore and implement personalized competency-based learning. So my background is in education as a teacher, as an administrator, as a university adjunct. I work in large-scale assessment. But beyond that, I've even did a stint at DESE. So most recently, I spend much of my time working alongside educators. That means teachers and instructional coaches and school leaders who are all trying to better align what happens in classrooms with what they are seeing that students need to be successful. So my role in SRSN is to work with educators both at the big picture, but also at the day-to-day classroom level. So that means helping educators clarify their vision for PCBL in the classroom, but also like support the practical shifts like rethinking grading or designing meaningful competencies or creating those structures that give students more voice and ownership in their learning. But what I love most is walking alongside educators as they test ideas, they learn from their missteps, and they build practices that really work for both their students and their communities.
Awesome. So your work really takes it from vision to practice and really helping teachers and educators think about how can I take this idea and put it into practice. From your perspective as a facilitator, what have you seen are the biggest benefits that students experience when schools start implementing components of PCBL?
Sure. So, one of the biggest benefits to the student experience is clarity. So, when learning is organized around clear competencies and success criteria, the students know what they're learning, why it matters, and what success looks like. That alone can be really incredibly empowering. So, PCBL also allows for more flexible pacing in the classroom and instruction, which helps meet the students where they are. So, instead of being defined by how fast they move through content or the reverse, like plodding through the year, the students are supported. They're supported to build understanding and skills at a pace that makes sense for them. That can increase their confidence, and especially for students who may have struggled in our more traditional configuration. Another major benefit is the quality of feedback that students receive. And I mean, I know it's not new news that feedback is important. There's lots of research to support that. But in the PCBL environment, that feedback becomes even more specific. It becomes super actionable, and it's focused on growth to mastery. So the students aren't just seeing a grade, they're getting real time, real information that they can use both to grow and to learn so that over time that builds their confidence and it helps create a stronger sense of ownership in their own learning.
So, can you tell us about how PCBL shifts the student experience when it comes to engagement, ownership of learning, and readiness for life beyond school?
Absolutely. So PCBL really shifts students from being passive recipients of learning to becoming active participants in their learning. So when students are involved in goal setting and reflection and tracking their own progress, that engagement increases because learning feels more authentic. It's certainly more relevant and it's 100% personal. So we also see students developing skills that go way beyond academics. And this is equally important that those skills include things like self-advocacy or time management, collaboration, and problem solving. So those soft skills, those transferable skills that are critical for life beyond school, whether they're going to college or they're going straight to the workaday world or some other pathway, that PCBL really helps those practices. I help them practice those skills in authentic ways and not just talk about them as a characteristic of a month, as something they're actually engaging in the day-to-day environment.
Yes, and I think that ties nicely with our guests that we had last month with talking about that real world learning. And
Mhm.
it's great to see and hear how these shifts not only help them academically in the classroom, but it's really setting them up and preparing them for what's to come next, whatever that may look like for each individual student.
Absolutely.
So, Malia, for schools that are just beginning, or maybe those schools that are ready to go a little bit deeper, like what PCBL components do you think tend to have the greatest impact early on?
Excellent question. So, for schools or even classroom teachers that are just getting started, there are a few pieces that tend to have an outsized impact early on. So, one is developing those clear shared competencies or success criteria. So, when teachers and students have a common understanding of what proficiency looks like, it creates this cohesion across the classroom and across grade levels. So we've already discussed some, and I cannot overemphasize the importance of that high impact of feedback. So we shift from primarily summative grading to more formative, sometimes smaller, even smaller assessments and the descriptive feedback that can change learning experiences really quickly. So that can be done without requiring a full systems overhaul. So when that's a concern that when I talk to educators that want to ease into PCBL or even jump into PCBL, they're concerned that they can't overhaul the whole system. And they don't have to. There's one little step right there that they can do in their classrooms to make those kinds of changes. But the flexible pacing of structures, even small ones, can make a big difference, giving students the opportunity to revisit their learning and to extend it when they are ready to do so. Another powerful tool are learner profiles. So they help teachers really intentionally focus on the whole child. They name the skills, the dispositions, and the strengths that they want students to develop over time.
So I think you've touched a couple times on maybe what would be that game-changing component that teachers or educators could do. Is there anything else to add to that or any other clarity as to why that's so important? Or maybe, like you said, what could an individual teacher or educator do in their classroom to really have a high impact if they don't feel like they can, like you said, overhaul the full system at the district level, possibly?
Sure, sure. So when I think about like a singular game changer, um, kind of digging a little deeper on that clarity around learning, I would have to say that what pops to the top of the surface are those targets and success criteria. And these are not new questions. I'm going to pose these questions, and educators are going to say, yes, 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 we know that. But it's about purposefully implementing these questions for the student, not for the teacher, but rather for the student, except that the teacher is the lead learner in the classroom, right? So, what am I learning? Why is this important or relevant? And how will I know when I'm successful? Like those questions, again, not new questions, but when we put that piece into the in conjunction with the targets and success criteria, everything else just starts to fall in place. So what I hear teachers tell me is that once they've made that shift, which is just so small, the questions that students ask become deeper, the quality of the conversations improve, and the classroom culture becomes focused on learning and their own learning rather than chasing points. What do I have to do to get more points? What do I have to do to get extra credit? Rather than how do I improve my learning or how does my learning grow toward mastery?
Yeah. So one thing you said there that really struck me is that when teachers are using learning targets and success criteria, it
Mhm.
is for the students. It's not for the teacher. It's not for the administrator to, check off a box for compliance that the teacher, did what was asked of them. So I
Mhm.
think really teachers, um, they need to, in their minds, make that shift of this is for my students. This is not even for me, to really see the impact that that could have.
Absolutely. So, when you think about learning targets on a bulletin board or on a chalkboard, or sorry, whiteboard, I'm dating myself, on a whiteboard that is never interacted with, that just becomes something that people put up there so the administrator can see it and check it off, that's less than authentic as well.
Mhm.
So that just becomes another part of the decoration of the classroom as opposed to a meaningful and powerful part of what's happening in the classroom and the learning in the classroom.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think this really helps teachers and schools see that they don't have to change everything at once to have meaningful change, that they can start small and work on some of those things to change things within their own classrooms.
Absolutely.
Yes. And we know change can be hard, especially when we've been doing something for a really long time,
Yep.
and we've seen success. So, what are some common challenges that you think schools face, as they take steps towards implementing components of PCBL?
Mhm. So, honestly, one of the most common challenges that schools face is a mindset shift. So, all things Angela Duckworth aside, creating the mindset that it is okay to try something different and try something new is okay. So PCBL asks educators and students and families to rethink practices, especially around grading and pacing, and honestly, what fairness looks like in the classroom environment. And that can be super uncomfortable, especially at first when you're trying something new. And this is not going to be new news. Nothing new news about saying time is a huge challenge. Teachers they're already juggling so many things, and learning a new practice takes time, and consistency across classrooms can be tricky, especially in a large district where you may have four or five or a pod of like grade teachers. And communication, I cannot emphasize this enough either. Communication with families is critical, especially if the practices that we're using look different from the practices that families may have experienced when they were in school. So those are some of the things that pop to my mind that are tricky.
Mhm.
So, Malia, how can thoughtful support like coaching, cohorts, shared learning, and so on help schools navigate some of these challenges?
Mhm. I think that this is where thoughtful support really matters. So, coaching, cohorts, shared learning spaces, those give the educators time to process, to ask questions, to learn from and with one another. We don't have to solve everything at once, and we don't have to solve it alone.
Mhm.
So in cohorts, educators can see examples from other schools. They can reflect on what's working and move at a sustainable pace. Like we also don't have to have the wheel reinvented tomorrow. So that collaborative approach really helps normalize the challenges and keeps the focus where the focus needs to be, which is on in continuous improvement rather than perfection.
Yes. I think we can all appreciate how that normalizes that we can still struggle, but we can still continue to work towards progress and work towards change, even though it may be hard at times.
Absolutely. Productive struggle, right? We
Yeah,
ask that of ourselves, which we also ask of our students.
definitely.
So, for educators that are listening and thinking, this is something my school needs, or maybe they're even just thinking, I'm really curious about this and I want to know more, can you share how they can sign up for the PCBL cohorts through the Success Ready Student Network?
Absolutely. So, educators, and by that I mean broadly, teachers, administrators, coaches, anyone really who are interested in signing up for the next PCBL cohort through the Success Ready Student Network should go to the website. Super simple, srsnmo.org. So, srsnmo.org. The cohort is designed to support schools at different stages. So whether you're just beginning to explore PCBL, you're already deep into PCBL, you're just refining your practices, there's a place and a space for everyone in the next cohort of educators. So the application process it's pretty straightforward on once you get to the srsnmo.org website. And schools can participate in teams. They can participate as individual educators. It all depends on your context, but we'd love to have you join us.
Okay. And just to clarify, the deadline for that next cohort that is starting is January 20th.
Thank you. Yes, the deadline to sign up is January 20th. And I encourage anyone who's even like a little curious to reach out or apply. The cohort is a great way to learn, to collaborate, and take those next steps with support along the way.
Mhm.
So Jami and I both participated in this cohort, and I think I can speak for both of us, Jami, when I say that we've learned quite a bit over the last year and a half or so of everything we've been through with the cohort and learned about PCBL. So Melia, this is really helpful, and having some clear ideas of where we can go next, where educators can go next for more information, makes it feel much more accessible.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes. And like Stacy said, we encourage you to explore PCBL through the SRSN network if it's something that there's even a little bit or that sparks your interest. You can also reach out to Stacy and I as we continue to learn on our journey with PCBL, and make sure that you join us in January for our next episode of the podcast to continue to explore PCBL. Melia, thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
You offered a lot of great insights and information to those educators out there who might be interested.
Thank you for letting me join you.
And thanks to all the educators that are listening. So whether you're curious or ready to dive in, PCBL can be a journey and you don't have to do it alone.